Hello guys and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please be sure to like and subscribe and share because that really helps me out on the channel and allows my channel to grow and allows me to make more videos like this for you guys. I hope you enjoy. So today up for review we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NECA Toon-Turtles Leatherhead. I got this guy at a second-hand toy store. So he is not fully complete. The people were honest and said that he's not 100% complete. So they said he's probably missing another shotgun and some extra hands and maybe another trap of some sort. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the accessories first so I can get those out of the way. So what came with this figure, let's see if this will focus, was this little plastic bear trap. It opens up. There's a little flat piece right here on the bottom to where it can be placed on the ground. There's no spring-loaded mechanism or anything. That would have been cool. That's probably something they would have done back in the 90s or something like that when the Turtles were originally released. But it's pretty cool. Just kind of looks like the mouse or teeth or something. Nothing too special. We also have this little dead lobster with no head. So this side is like an orangish color. And then the other side is like a darker reddish orange color. That's kind of how they do the Toon-Turtles. Like when we get to the figure, you'll see that part of it's like a lighter color and part of it's a darker color. It's just supposed to kind of represent the cell shading and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a cool accessory. He can hold it in his hand if you want him to. See, I mean, there's nothing really special about it. You can have him gnawing on it if you want. He's got one of the claws in his mouth now. Let's move that off to the side. He also has this tiny little palm tree, it looks like. I really do not know what this is supposed to be if it's not a palm tree. But it's a cool accessory, I guess. It's nothing very special in my opinion. So I'm just going to move that off to the side. And then he also comes with this real chain, like wrist bracer thing, or wrist trap, or it could go around the neck of a turtle, I guess. I might try that on a figure here in a little bit. It opens up and then closes, so that's pretty cool. There's not really a good way for him to hold this. You can like wrap the chain through his hand, but it kind of falls out really easily, so I don't really know what you guys would want to do with this, unless, like I said, you wrap it several times around his hand and then put this around another figure's neck and just hold it like that, like he's caught one of the punk frogs like Genghis Frog or Rasputin Frog or something like that. Anyway, we're going to move this gun out of his hand so that we can do the articulation. This is a NECA figure, so there's a lot of paint on these figures, and it's kind of obvious. Ooh, that sounded like it's going to break. But it's kind of obvious that there's paint on the skin and stuff, unlike some factory figures where they're like molded. The NECA factory figures feel like they've been molded in a certain color plastic, then painted with acrylic on top of that. So there is paint rubbed very easily. If you look closely at my gun, there's like a little green spot from his hand right there. It's cool that his gun does appear to be 2 ketchup bottles attached to like some kind of, looks like a bug zapper to me. That looks just like one of those little hanging bug zappers with like the blue light that you'll hang outside to keep away pests. Like the flies will fly into it and it'll shock them. That's what that looks like to me. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be. But those are definitely 2 ketchup bottles. And then the rest of it's just like a regular gun. Oh, there's more paint scuffing right there. And right there. But otherwise it's in okay shape. Alright. I'm going to move in for a closer look at the head sculpt. It's very cartoon accurate. Let's look at the head articulation. It doesn't really move. So NECA, why for you do that? It really needs some more articulation there, in my opinion, because it just barely rocks the side. Like, you can't even really get him to turn his head at all, and he does not look up any more than that at all, which is kind of crazy. His hat is not removable. Like the vintage figure, it's permanent. His jacket does appear to be part of the sculpt, actually. This entire piece right here is actually part of the jacket, and the entire thing's molded in this brown color, because if you look slightly underneath this stomach piece, you can see there's still a line of brown. So the entire thing's done in this two-tone brown color, and then it's painted green to match his chest. So there's probably like a regular standard buck of some sort underneath there. I'm not sure. Let's move this hand. The jaw is articulated so he can slightly open his mouth, but it's not very much, so it doesn't really seem like anything too impressive. If that's all that it does, I honestly would have been fine with them leaving it off, or just having the head sculpted like this, because it doesn't really close 100%, and it doesn't really open, so I think NECA really messed up on that part of the figure. But otherwise, it's a really cool head sculpt, really nice paint detail. So let's do the articulation on the arms. That's tight. So that side's really loose, but this side's like really tight. So they go out about that far, so not too great. Swivel at the bicep / tricep. Double jointed elbow. Pretty decent elbow joints in all honesty. I do think that after doing it for a while, since all these joints are painted, you will find paint rub. At least that's how it is on my other NECA figures after a while that I've had in the past. They just start to rub off. Let's see. That wrist hinges. Oh, and here's a good example. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but right there's a molded piece of plastic, and then over there's where it's painted, and by just moving the wrist a few times, that paint's already peeling off, and now it's an almost bare joint already. But there's really good texture on the hands. It's not by sculpt or anything, it just has to do with the paint, but it gives it a cool reptile skin look. Like, it's 100% because of the paint. Otherwise, it would be smooth, just like the rest of the arms and stuff. This wrist bracer is a separate piece that is glued on. The hands are removable on a standard, just like... Oh, sorry, went off camera. The hands are removable on like a standard little peg system. That did peel off the paint off the peg, but that's fine. So I'm just going to put that back in there real quick. The other arm is having some issues with the articulation. There's like a gap right here where it's about to come off. You can push it back in there, but it just pops down very easily, which it's not supposed to. But what can you expect when you get a secondhand figure? Anyway, it swivels at the bicep / tricep. The double jointed elbow is really stuck on this side, but it's just the same as the other side. And both of the hands have the standard hinge. There's no by the power of Grayskull type hand or vertical hand or whatever you would call that. So it's all horizontally hinged. The waist does turn a little bit, but is very tight. It's because this is like a rubber piece, and the crotch piece is also a really hard rubber, so it doesn't really allow for much movement. There's a tiny bit of ab crunch, like it goes back a tiny bit. I don't know if you can see that because this arm keeps getting in the way, but it goes back a little bit, and then it goes forward just a tiny bit, but nothing very special with that. I honestly don't know if this piece is actually the right color. It's like a gray color, but it's textured to match the stomach and the underside of this tail. So I don't know if that's supposed to be just like a naked alligator crotch or what. But it's weird because he has these blue jeans that come out from that, and the blue jeans cover his boots completely. Which that's how it was in the cartoon for the pants, but I don't remember this piece being gray. There's only like one episode that he's in. I think it's Leatherhead, Terror of the Swamp from the original Turtles cartoon. His legs, I think he can do a full split. Almost. Yeah, basically a full split. And that gives you a good way to see what type of joint's in there. So it looks like it's a hinge and then a swivel. So it can swivel on that little peg thing, as you can see, and then it also hinges. So that's pretty cool. Let's see if this will bend. Okay, I'm not going to try that on camera. If this doesn't bend, I might have to boil some water for it. There we go. There we go. So double jointed knee. I hope you can see that. Here, there you go. There's a double jointed knee, and you can see the two tones of shading, the black on the back and the dark blue in the front. Mimic that cell shading. These are pinned figures. Sadly, they are not pinless. So if you're a Motu Classics collector or a collector of most of the NECA stuff, or the McFarlane DC Multiverse figures or Spawn or anything like that, you're kind of used to that little tiny hole with the pegs anyway. But if you're like a Motu Origins collector or something like that, you're probably used to having just regular standard arms with no little peg holes. Like Masterverse, they avoid the peg holes for Master Universe. But anyway, the ankle goes down pretty far, goes up back into its normal position, and it does rock actually very, very well. So I guess you can work with it for a while and get some really dynamic poses if you can get the articulation to work right. The only thing is with that head, it's like really hard to get him to look where you want him to look. So even if you get him posed in a really cool way, it's just like super hard to get that head to look the direction that you're trying to make him be posed in. So, but that's a decent little stance right there. So now that we went over the articulation, whilst he's in that stance, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the cartoon Mondo Gecko from NECA Toys. I've had this figure for several years now. He was also from the same shop that I got this one from, but he was still in package, whereas Leatherhead was out of package in a little plastic baggie. Which I actually got him for $25 due to the fact that he was missing accessories, so that's pretty cool. So here he is alongside Mondo Gecko. I'm going to pose them in a regular pose, and then we'll be right back. So here's how they scale together. One thing that I forgot doing the articulation was the tail, so I'm going to go ahead and show you that. It is like two separate pieces. This piece is connected to the butt piece or whatever, and then this piece is on like a double ball joint, but it does not articulate very well. It just slightly moves up and down. Well, I just did down and up, but you know what I mean. And then it can spin all the way around, upside down, slightly to the side, but not really. It's not the greatest of articulation for the tail, but I mean, you don't really need a crazy tail articulation anyway, in my opinion. You just need to be able to have the tail do this. I would like it to come down towards the ground a little bit more, but you can kind of get it to go down, but not much. I wish they would have done a bendy wire in this tail like they did for the stump wrestling Leatherhead that I'm going to bring in here in a second. Or at least how they did with Mondo Gecko, to where it has a ball joint angled at the right way to where you can make it go basically straight down. I mean, it's not perfect on Mondo, but it's way better than Leatherhead's. I mean, there is a slight gap there when you pose it all the way down, but it's not like you're going to be seeing it like this from your shelf anyway, unless you pose your figures backwards, which if you do. That's a little strange. Anyway, that's how those two scale together. So, my favorite side character hero, Mondo Gecko, and my favorite side character villain, Leatherhead. So for Ninja Turtles, my favorite hero, like main character hero, was Michelangelo, and my favorite villain for like main character is like a three-way tie between Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady. I really like the voices of Bebop and Rocksteady in the cartoon, just like what Leatherhead's voice. Also, there's a little spot right here where there's supposed to be a little clip. I don't really know what the clip was for. I think it might have been for the lobsters to hang there because I'm pretty sure he had a lobster hanging on his belt in the cartoon. Well, I broke that clip earlier when I first got him out of the plastic bag that he was in. I was trying to see if this trap would hang on that clasp, because the little bar right here was small enough to fit in there. Well, I hit it in the wrong spot and just snapped right off, so I just removed it the rest of the way. So there's a tiny little hole there, but that's not a big deal in my opinion. Now I'm going to bring in the stump wrestling Leatherhead. So, sorry about that. Apparently I've been filming, or thinking I've been filming for a long time. I just went through the entire comparison with Mondo Gecko, and then was moving on to the stump wrestling Leatherhead, which is why you just saw him in the shot a second ago. And I had forgot to press play again. So I finished everything that I was talking about these two figures and was moving on to the next figure before I realized. So I'm just going to have to redo that. So here's how they scale alongside each other. They look pretty good. Here's the side view. Something that I forgot to mention was the tail articulation. So it can go up and down just a tiny bit and spin all around upside down. It does not really go side to side that well, but it does a little bit, so it's decent. It does not tilt down to the ground near as much as I'd like it to, so I like to have my figures in the back on my shelves so they don't fall over, because my shelves are pretty high from the ground and some figures have broken from falls from my shelves. So I do not like the fact that he will not be able to go flush with the wall. He'll just have to come out, but that's how it is for all of my tailed characters. Mondo Gecko has a better tail articulation because I can bend it basically down to the ground. And if I bend his knees just right, it touches the ground anyway. Wow, he's got some loose joints there. But anyway, there's how those two look together. So my favorite side character villain and my favorite side character hero. So they look pretty cool together. Also, I wanted to mention that this little piece right here is supposed to have a little clip, which I think is to hold this little lobster, because I'm pretty sure in the cartoon he had a lobster hanging from his belt. I broke that clip when I got him out of the bag. I was trying to attach this bear trap because I thought maybe this bear trap would hang there, and apparently it did not hang the way I wanted it to. When I went to put it in there, it just went snap, so I pulled off the rest of the peg. I have a little piece of it right here. I just have one piece of it. I don't know where the other piece is, but it's just a little tiny gray piece of plastic, and there's one other half to it. It would just clip in there. So there is a tiny little hole right there, but nothing too extreme. Now we're going to bring in the stump wrestling Leatherhead to show how they compare with each other. So here they are side by side, the new stump wrestling NECA Leatherhead, and then the older cartoon Leatherhead. So they have very, very different designs. I like this design a lot, but I like this design way more by far. I've already done a review on this guy, which there was some issues with that video. It cut out mid-filming, so I did lose some of the stuff that I was going to film on that video. So you guys can go check that out. It's Leatherhead Toy Review Part 1. And there is a Part 2 because I was reviewing two different Leatherhead figures in those videos. And like I said, it had to be split into two videos because I ran out of storage space while filming, so I had to stop, delete some stuff, and then finish filming. So the things don't really line up 100%, but the first video is like 12 minutes, and the second video is like 2 minutes. Anyhow, here's how they look side by side from the side view. Here they look from the back side. This tail has a great articulation. It's got a full hinge right here, so it goes all the way down to the ground. It's got a bendy wire, so it bends to the side. So I really like the tail on this one. I wish they would have used the same stuff on this one, but since this one came out later, I'm sure they had like some complaints or something from fans about the way this tail worked, and that's why they changed it. Or maybe after they were messing around with it, they decided to just change materials. I don't know, but it's definitely an improvement on this figure as compared to the cartoon one. But they look pretty decent together. Very, very different designs. But that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be different designs, so they look pretty cool. One last side view of those two, and then I'm going to bring in the Turtles of Grayskull Leatherhead. So, this Leatherhead is by far one of my favorite Turtles of Grayskull characters from like the Ninja Turtle side of things. He looks fantastic. Here's how they scale alongside each other. This one's taller. As you can see, the little greenish bluish tint is very similar on these two for like the front half of this Leatherhead. I really like this design because you can see like the scaly legs and everything. This is really a really good figure, the Turtles of Grayskull one is. Here's a side view of those two. This hat is removable, so you could use it on a different figure while this hat is not. Articulation on this head is okay. It's much better than the other head. Jaw opens way better. So I think Mattel actually did a better job for articulation on this figure, and their details are spot on. I really like this one, like I said before, but Mattel did a little bit better with some of the aspects of the figure. Here's the tails. Mattel did a very, very large tail for a smaller figure. I think they could have done it a little bit smaller and it would have worked out a little bit better for them. Almost if they would do this tail size with these details would look better, and then this tail size on this figure. You can't really interchange them because they have different connections. Like this is like a little hole in the butt and then a little peg and ball system, which it does remove out of here with some force if you do it right. I can't get a grip of it right now, but anyway, I don't think it would connect to that anyway because it's a much bigger ball joint on this tail. But yeah, they look pretty cool together. Now I'm just going to go ahead and show some more characters alongside this NECA Leatherhead to show the scale. This character is a little tiny orange goblin custom. I didn't do a great job on him, but he utilizes a vintage Ninja Turtles Triceraton body and mixed with Triceraton legs and the vintage Rocksteady body and a vintage Whiplash head. So scale-wise, he's exactly the same as the Turtles. So that's the only reason I brought him in. I don't really collect vintage Turtles. I have some of the re-releases, but they're in storage, and the only vintage Turtles I have are also in storage. So here's how they look together. That's actually a pretty decent scale, though, in all honesty. If this was a turtle and this is an alligator, like, you don't need to have an alligator that's barely bigger than a turtle. Like, that is actually a great scale, like if you think about nature-wise. I'm going to move him off to the side and show how this Leatherhead scales with the biggest and smallest of the Biker Mice from Mars figures. Like, if you're an anthropomorphic animal collector and you like the 90s style, I feel like you always would associate things like Ninja Turtles, Biker Mice from Mars, Street Sharks, and all that kind of stuff as like a multiverse of characters. So here he is alongside Vinny and Moto. So he's definitely not quite in scale with these figures. I do feel like they did Moto too big at Nacelle Toys because the other figures kind of fit in with the NECA Ninja Turtles characters. Like they're supposed to scale the exact same as humans, the biker mice are, and turtles are supposed to be a little bit smaller, so they scale great with the turtles because they're the same size as Shredder, basically. But this one figure, Moto, is just entirely too big, so he just towers over everybody. Even in like Masterverse, he's like one of the tallest characters that I have on my 7-inch to 8-inch wall. I'm going to move these off to the side, and I'm going to just show how he compares to some vintage biker mice. It's the same characters, Vinny and Moto. I don't have a vintage throttle. I have the nacelle throttle, but I didn't want to bring him in because he's like the in-between figure, so he'd just be a little bit taller than Leatherhead and a little bit shorter than Moto. Anyway, here's the like bluish harness variant of Vinny with the black little bullets or whatever they are. So here's how he scales alongside Vinny, and here's the football player or sports bros Moto. There's how he scales alongside Leatherhead. All right, we're going to move those off to the side. And for our last comparison, as I mentioned before, Street Sharks, you kind of associate that with Ninja Turtles. And I mean, sharks and alligators are always cool to have together. Alligators, crocs, and sharks. Just like the epic battle everybody wants to see, especially when you're a kid. Like I know when I was really, really young, I loved watching videos of alligators and sharks fighting. I just thought it was so cool. It's very rare, but it is cool. Here's how they scale with each other. They're pretty decent together. I mean, they're not great. Detail-wise, like with all the cell shading and stuff, Leatherhead does not fit in with this 30th anniversary Ripster. The new Street Sharks 30th anniversary figures are done a lot like the Origins figures. So he does scale pretty good with this Turtles of Grayskull Leatherhead. They have very similar designs and overall sculpts and styles, like the smoothness and everything, whereas this has a very painty texture. Anyway, that is my overall review of the of the Leatherhead Toon-Turtles figure from NECA Toys. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Peace.